Okay, so now I'm going to answer some of the questions of the quiz. So the first quiz, it was about this chapter of epigenesis and preformation. And if you remember, that was a video that we watched in the beginning of the class, in the beginning of the course, about preformation. And and in the previous class, we started the debate about Aristotle, how he created this preformation and epigenesis debate that in the later it was still under debate. Okay, and this is the first question. It is suggested that all organisms were created at the same time and that succeeding generation grow from what they grow, and that have existed since the beginning of the creation. So definitely genes at that time we didn't know that exist. Vapors, this was an idea from a Greek philosopher. And gemmules, we will study what are gemmules. However, maybe you already know that the right answer will be homunculus. So if you remember the video, when we talk about, as I said, Aristotle said this debate about preformation and epigenesis. And in the video lecture, we talk about the difference between that these are two opposite sides. While the preformation, the body structure are already present in the sex cells. In the epigenesis, the body structures were not present in the sex cells, but were formed anew from scratch, and there is a process of organization and development and morphogenesis. In the particular case of the preformation, we know that the sex cells contain a complete miniature adult, so as you can see here, and is called the homunculus. And if you remember the video, in an extreme case of the preformation, we will see there will be like Russian dolls that you will find inside of a sex cell, a human who will have another tinier human inside, and it will continue like this, like a Russian doll, to the infinite. And if you did the readings, you know that that was favor that hypothesis due to religious beliefs. So the answer is definitely homunculus, and definitely is not gemmules. Why not gemmules? Because in the future we will study that. You remember this ideas of Hippocrates, that he proposed this idea. Um, Hippocrates, that he proposed the idea of the pangenesis. So Darwin took these ideas back and said somebody needs to answer these questions, and they were forgotten for a long time. So he said, let's take them back and let's start again. So he retook the idea of the pangenesis. Pan come from the prefix and from a root in Greek that means whole, and genesis means origin, so it's the origin of everything. And gemmules, each one of these components that transmit inheritance. For Darwin, they were pangenes. Yeah, these pangenes or gemmules, either one is the same. And from this idea of pangenesis, the only thing that is still that we preserve is this idea of genes. If you see, we remove the idea of pangenes, so we just keep the idea of genes that are the same as gemmules. And in the following class, you will watch, after the test, you will watch a video about pangenesis. Of course, as I said, genes is wrong because this is a new idea, and they even thought about it at this time. And the idea of vapors come from Pythagoras, that every part of the body is releasing vapors, which are responsible for a new embryo. So definitely This is wrong. The right one again is homunculus. Okay, now let's go to this question. And they're talking about this. Okay, for 2 centuries before the development of the cell theory that we will talk in future classes, there were two competing hypotheses, and one of them was epigenesis, and there was another one. So the first will be the opposite hypothesis to epigenesis, and this opposite hypothesis, it was divided into two main sections. One, it was that the homunculus must come from the man, while the other one that the homunculus has to come from the female eggs. So the answer is very easy. It will be preformation is the opposite of epigenesis, and these two sections of the preformation are these two. So let me show you that section of the video lecture. So if you remember, this is the preformation, and it's divided into ovist and a spermist. And here you have the case of the spermatozoa, and this is a homunculus. And here it will be the case of an ova. So both are the preformation. It was divided into these two main competing hypotheses. Now we're going to discuss a few more questions in case that you want to study for your exam. So let's think about this one. Okay, here there's a question mark. Is the process by which organisms develop in a stepwise fashion from an unorganized state, and we have 4 options. So the answer is epigenesis. And if you go to the video lectures, that was the definition that I gave you. That is the opposite of preformation. Here you find they go from an organized state to an organized state. And I gave you this, so from an early to an late stage. So definitely preformation is the opposite. And as you remember, the homunculus is the adult, the miniature adult that it was in the sex cell, that scientists consider that at that time exist. And some group of scientists, they were the spermist, that they believed that the homunculus of the male was responsible, was the one that it was in the sex cells, as you can see here, in this part of the video lecture. So conclusion, all the other ones are wrong, and the only one that is correct is epigenesis. Okay, preformists consider that body structures were present in sex cells, somatic cells, vapors, or humor. So that is very easy, we just saw it. The answer will be sex cells. So here in this section of the video lecture, in case that you have a question, the somatic cells are actually the opposite of the sex cells, are the cells that are not the rest of the cells. If you remember biology, the sex cells have half of the genetic material, while the somatic cells, the cells of the rest of your body, have the double amount of genetic material. This is why when the sperm and the egg get together, so let's write here sperm and here an egg get together, you in this embryo, suppose that you have one chromosome and one chromosome. Here you will have 2 chromosomes, so you will have half of the genetic information, half of the genetic information, and here you have double. So all the somatic cells have double of the genetic information, while the sex cells have only half. And we already talked about that Pythagoras was the one who believed that that the genetic was based on vapors that come from different parts of the body and they were transmitted to the embryo. So this definitely is wrong. And humors is wrong because that was the belief that Hippocrates had when he proposed the idea of the epigenesis. That is very important. That if you remember, Darwin is going to take later on, and that he's going to take this idea, and instead of humor, he will call them gemmules or pangenes. So conclusion: for many reasons, all of them are wrong. They are from other topics. The only one that is correct is sex cells. Okay, now they are asking you again this very easy question that is related to preformism and epigenesis, and they are asking you what is the name of the formerly popular theory that organisms develop from a miniature version of themselves. So if you see a miniature version of themselves, and you know that it was formerly popular, you know that this should be preformism. So as we talked before, the only option is this one, preformism. And homunculus is wrong because this is not a theory. It was the name that they gave it to the miniature adults, not to the theory, so this is wrong. And as we said before, epigenesis is the opposite of preformism. So there is no miniature versions here, so this is wrong. Homunculus is wrong. And as we studied before, this is also wrong. Remember that this idea go from Hippocrates, and then Darwin is going to bring it back. And this one, Hippocrates talk while Darwin talk about pangenes, and he talk also about gemmules. Hippocrates talk about humors. So only option is A. Okay, now let's go to answer this question. Early microscopy studies support preformism due to, and here are all the options, and the answer will be that the microscope have a low resolution. So they believe that as they have such a little resolution, sorry, let's draw here. They thought that inside of here there was a baby. Yeah, it was not very clear. However, then when they were able to observe the sperm cells, they saw that there was nothing like a human. There was actually a nucleus, and here you have chromosomes. So you have here is DNA, and they can follow all the structure, and definitely there is no tiny humans here. So it was due to the low resolution of the microscopes. This be internal contamination is caused by the lack of regular proper maintenance. This is not right. The three common problems were alignment. This is not right. All the areas of uneven surface. All these things are talking about microscopy, but actually the main reason is that at that time the microscope they didn't have enough resolution to differentiate what was happening there.